Hello, I'm Lee Darnell. Thank you for taking this Leadership Series class on passion and confidence. I hope that it'll be more than you just reading some, listening to me some, and taking in my opinion of things, which isn't always right. I hope this is a good opportunity for us to network so that we can post our opinions, things we've seen, things we've experienced and done into the class, and learn from each other. In my experience, that seems to be where the strongest leadership comes, is from seeing good leadership, seeing bad leadership, networking, and trying to come up with the best practices that we can use to better ourselves, our agencies, and our professions. To recap some of what we've done in other sessions, it's important that we remember every month when we do these that leadership is not a position. Leadership is not a title. It doesn't come with collar brass or pay raises. Leadership belongs to every person at every level of every agency. They may or may not use it, but that's where it is. Leadership is defined as having followers. It's all about influence. If you influence others, then you're a leader. Sometimes a manager may not be a leader. Sometimes the strongest leadership in a productive agency is somewhere in the middle management, or even lower than that sometimes on the chain of command, as long as that leadership is there. And hopefully we can all grow as leaders in the process and help develop leaders under our command as well. In choosing topics for this series, I didn't just throw darts at a board. I got thinking about my career and some of the things that I've seen and heard that seem to really make the difference in a manager or a leader taking that next step up. And one of those things is passion and confidence. I think it's hard to be a good leader if you don't have passion. Now, that doesn't mean that you're running around like a wild man, working 100-hour weeks, flailing your arms and picking in the streets trying to get attention. That's granted, I've tried that, it didn't work. Passion comes at different levels and with different focal points. Sometimes the leader can be a quiet passion. You have Mother Teresa of Calcutta, very humble, very low-key, quiet leader who has had a major impact throughout the world. I think her order currently has 130 or 140 different groups that are active in the world feeding the poor now. She was a very low-key leader, but she was so full of passion that you could feel it, and it made a huge impact. It can be an aggressive passion. I'm sure we've all worked with the aggressive leaders or worked around the aggressive leaders. It can also be passion at just one point in time. For example, an employee steps up and says, so-and-so on our shift, he's been out of work for 6 months now with a back injury. Let's get together and have a golf tournament. Raise a little bit of money, bring him and his family out, and try to help them out. And that's leadership, born of passion. That's something that will get people's attention. That's something that will live long in hearts and minds, and can actually take whoever stepped up for that one moment in time and really help build their respect and their followership as a leader. So anyway, I think all great leaders have had passion of one degree or another. Do you think Martin Luther King Jr. would have been as successful had he walked up on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. and said, hey, I've got some ideas, let's get together and talk about them? No. None of us would have stopped and listened. He walked up to a podium, grabbed a microphone, and said, I have a dream. That's passion. You go back and watch the video, and you can see it in his eyes, in his movements, that he had something to say and he believed it. And look at the impact it's had over the decades. John F. Kennedy, when he spoke and said, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." That wasn't the dynamic Martin Luther King Jr. style. It was more reserved, but he had the respect as a young man, as a visionary, as someone who was going to bring class back into the country. And did it make an impact? Sure it did. If nothing else, the Peace Corps and the people who poured into international service, poured into domestic service. Personally, I think we could use a little more of that right now. But if you can figure out how to inspire that kind of service in the nation, I'd love to hear it. Biggest example in my life, and probably in yours as well, is back to 9/11/01. You know, we all know where we were and what we were doing. Some of us were already in the business of emergency services as police officers or paramedics or firefighters or telecommunicators or whatever part of the field we belong to. And you know, that really, it hit me hard as an American, as a person, and as an emergency responder. I was looking at it from so many different directions that moved me, and I'm sure you were too. Granted, I know of at least one, if there's not more people watching this class right now who were not in the field, who were like in middle school maybe. I'm not calling any names. But the leadership that came out at that time, you don't have to agree with them politically or anything else, but George W. Bush, Rudy Giuliani, and the others who stepped up to the plate and spoke, who we saw on the TV every day telling us it's going to be okay. And, you know, did we not pull together as a country? It was incredible. The passion that arose in us as a people and that arose in us as a profession. Even when the country seems to forget what happened, you can bet those of us in emergency services will never let that die. It will go with me to my grave, and I intend on the people 100 years from now understanding that feeling that I have, that I had, that I'm sure we all had. That's a lot of passion. That can drive a lot of leadership, a lot of activity. A lot of people following 9/11 made a rush to the military. Why? Because they knew that battles were forthcoming, that we had been attacked, and someone had to stand up and defend us. Some people rushed into emergency services work. Some people just, spent more time focused on their family or being a better citizen of the community or what have you. But the passion came out, and it was beautiful. Have we lost it now? Well, that's for each of us to decide. I haven't, but it feels kind of like society may have. And the last one I'm going to mention, and I hate to even bring it up because he's an absolutely vile and disgusting individual, but is Adolf Hitler. Hitler was a crazy man. He was also a brilliant man. Regardless, he had such a strong followership. Throughout the world, this man had millions of dedicated followers who would fight, die, kill, anything to support him and his feelings, his agenda. Looking back at old World War II videos and beyond, I don't understand a word that's coming out of Hitler's mouth, but just watching him speak, his motions, his facial expressions, the way he commanded himself, just reeked of passion. Now the passion was misdirected, but that doesn't mean a leader or a passionate leader has to be ethical or moral or legal. people listened. And we can have that same effect. Our employees can have that same effect. Yeah, I like to say in my agency we have the dark side. I have lots of little Darth Vaders running around in their black helmets. The key is just picking out who's wearing the helmet and the cape and trying to find a way to pull them back to the good side, to the light side. So anyway, passion's good and passion's bad, but it's going to be in every one of our agencies. Hopefully we can harness that ourselves as leaders. We can develop that among our followers. We can help identify those who have the negative passions that need to be tuned down a little bit before they get out of hand. Hopefully those are some of the things that we can get out of this class. And I'll close this little video by reading another statement from Martin Luther King Jr. He once said, "If a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, 'Here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well.'" Something to think about.